Well, once again on the channel, I have to take exception to something Lindy Page said, because again, he is wrong. I like Lindy Page. In fact, I love his videos. I love his Britishness, his love of tanks, his merciless, sardonic dissing of the French, which, if you watch my Charles de Gaulle video, I do a bit of that. I take the lead from Lindy Page with that, because I still haven't forgiven them for their behaviour in the Second World War after we saved them in the First. But this is not about that. This is about his video, which must be, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old now, that I watched on Cavalry. He says, what a dumb idea. Why would you take some kind of shy animal that's not an aggressive creature at all, and train the creature to ride into battle and have spiky things pointed at it and all that stuff? Clearly, Lindy Page has never been near a horse, even though he has a really old video from about 15 years ago where he got kicked by a pony and it nearly breaks his leg. I've just been watching a video about the Battle of Agincourt, and the historian there, whose name I don't know off the top of my head, but I've seen him before, and he's very eloquent. And he's talking about his own horse, and he's saying the vulnerability of archers to cavalry. And of course, the reason why it didn't work at Agincourt, and it never worked against British archers or English archers and Welsh archers. Actually, Scotland was not part of the game at that point, except for the French on their side. Shortly after, but they would stick in spiky sticks. They'd cut down some nearby trees, sharpen the stakes, and they'd shove them in the ground. And that would be, yes, a very good defence. But regarding this thing about the horse being some kind of shy and retiring creature, and not the sort of thing that you wish to charge into battle with, have you ever seen a horse, Lloyd? Lindy Page, have you ever seen one? They're very tall. They're incredibly muscular. They have big teeth. I have a best friend of an in-law, their daughter, had her finger bitten off by one. These are not gentle creatures, and certainly war horses were not gentle creatures. These things were trained in much the same way that you get these chavs going to the park, and they kind of put some lube on a tree, and they get their nasty little dogs to jump up and hang onto it with their teeth and that kind of stuff. Training them for fighting. This is what you did with your horses back in medieval times, and no doubt earlier. I mean, the Roman cavalry was supplied by the Allies and somewhat useless, maybe, but cavalry was very often the decisive factor in a fight. Indeed, it was for Scipio Africanus, Zama, or Zama, depending on how you pronounce it. I don't know, I'm not Carthaginian. Sending the cavalry around the back, taking them in the rear. The Namibian cavalry, North African cavalry, under their leader, Mathanissa, I think it was, a dude who, incidentally, sired a child when he was 95. So it tells you a little bit about the potency of Namibians. But anyway, no, these horses were aggressive. These horses would kick you. These horses would bite you. These horses were very, very muscly creatures and very, very aggressive creatures. And they knew who the enemy was. They could smell a Frenchman. They have very large nostrils. And they would go into the fight, with an absolute, the strength and the aggressiveness of an attack dog. And you can imagine the momentum, okay? I do a bit of physics, right? Momentum, mass multiplied by velocity gives you momentum. If you have a horse that weighs, I don't know how much a horse weighs, I suspect it's 300, 400, 500 kilograms, probably the weight of a small car, and the creature's galloping, I believe they can hit 30 miles an hour. Can you imagine the crash and the crunch and the terror of this beast coming at you, especially when it doesn't just want to crash into you and its riders spike you with some kind of, long sticky thing? The horse will kick you. The horse will bite you. The horse will ride you down. If you read about cavalry, very often it just says they rode them down. They literally trampled them. It was a medieval tank. So cavalry was not a stupid idea, as Lindy Page alleges. This is a big, aggressive beast. Now, I don't like horses. My old best friend from uni is a horse lover. Her family breeds horses and stuff. I've always shied away from actually going near the things. I've only ridden a horse once, and I didn't really enjoy it. They're not very comfortable to sit on. Their suspension is a bit muscly and bony. But I have been charged by a cow back a few years ago now. Back when I was in school, I used to cut across the fields on the way to school. On the way home from school, I was charged by a cow. And a cow, I have reason to believe, is nowhere near as fast as a horse. Probably weighs as much, if not more, than one. I did not stand and fight the cow. Yeah, I literally sprinted as fast as my legs would take me, and so did my best friend who was with me. Because this cow, it meant business. It was literally going to crash into me and trample me to death. For some reason, it didn't like us. I don't know why. Maybe it was a French cow and it listened to my Gore video. But anyway, if a cow puts, two fairly athletic young lads to flight, what's a horse going to do? Cavalry was not a stupid idea, as Lindy Page alleges. Cavalry was a battle-winning invention. When did true cavalry arrive? It didn't arrive till the high-back saddle, which was that an early medieval invention, I believe. Because the problem before that is when you just kind of sat on the thing and you charge and you hit an enemy with some kind of long stick with a pointy metal bit at the end, you just get knocked off the horse. You're unhorsed. And so the high-back saddle was a very key invention. So if you look at, for example, bas-reliefs of the Syrians and these kinds of people, from biblical times, there wasn't true cavalry. They had saddles. They would sit on horses. They certainly had cavalry. But you couldn't charge. And it was that invention of the high-back saddle made all the difference, because suddenly you and the horse are linked together in some kind of medieval tank, basically. And hey, you can armour your horse as well. If you don't want to get shot with bows and arrows and things, drape some armour over it too. There was a reason why going into World War I, we had, 5 divisions of infantry and 1 of cavalry, I believe. And there was a reason why we had all that cavalry still. And in fact, if you listen to, particularly the Indian Army, if you listen to Major, I must call him by his title, because he's a good guy, Major Gordon Corrigan. He's done some wonderful lectures on this. And the way the cavalry performed for the Indian Army, they would train them to jump barbed wire, charge a machine gun nest, and indeed, in these local tactical actions, it was highly effective. So cavalry was not a stupid idea. If I'm going to battle, I'd probably rather have a motor vehicle. But if I had to pick, I don't know. I think I'm probably riding on a battle cow. But if I could ride a horse, yeah, I'd take a horse. Big, aggressive, bitey creature. There's a reason why, just digressing again back to biblical times, it was very clear, if you read the instructions given to the Israelites, they had to hamstring the horses. And my brother was very indignant at this, because he is a horse lover. He said, why don't we do something terrible like that? Why is God giving these instructions to the Israelites? God created the animals, so why would he say that you're to do something so awful to them? The reason was that these horses were not tame, innocent, gentle beasts. They were dangerous, and they were going to do serious harm to you. And so if you can hamstring a horse, then at the end of the battle, you can humanely destroy it. But they were battle vehicles and extremely aggressive. And I haven't got time to list all the times when they've been effective. But believe me, the number of battles where you hear you sweep away the cavalry and then you take the enemy in the flank or in the rear. Often it was the cavalry clash that was decisive. I mentioned Zama, but if I put my mind to it, I could probably list 100 more examples. Anyway, that's a little bit about horses.